was on December 31st, the last day of 2022 on New Year's Eve in Japan. Now, going into this event, we were all kind of speculative. How is this going to go? What was it going to be like? We weren't sure what really the event was going to be like. But it turned out pretty well. I mean, the production on Rizin is insane. How much money they spent on production is amazing. Adrian McKee's walkout was great. And it really kind of puts to shame maybe some of the pageantry compared to like American and maybe more mainstream MMA corporations and organizations. Anyways, Bellator MMA ended up going 5-0 on this night. Let's talk about it. So in the first fight on the main card,
we had Gazi Rabadanov versus Koji Takeda. And now, going into this fight, like, a lot of people just kind of wrote Takeda off. Rabadanov is a Russian guy. He was 18-4 going into this fight, and he was a pupil of Habib. He's Habib's guy, so of course Rizin's going to milk that. He had won 4 in a row going into this fight, so he was the heavy favorite. But Takeda was not to be counted out. In the first round, I'd give the round 10-9 to Rabadanov, even though Rizin scores the fights by the whole bout. The first round did go to Rabadanov. Takeda just seemed faster though. Like in the first round, his striking was faster. He was closing the distance faster. Rabadanov was kind of not shy, but he was picky with his shots. He just picked his shots. He wasn't kind of going out there to brawl. It was obvious. Um, Takeda, as I said, he closed the distance well, but he kept his hands down, which did not help. It was, of course, to stop the takedown, so that opened up the striking a little bit for Rabadanov. Um, Rabadanov ended up dropping Takeda in the first round and actually hurt him pretty bad, and that ended the first round. The second round, Takeda actually bounced back pretty well. At the end of the first round, he did get hurt, but the second round, he bounced back pretty well. He looked pretty good, and he was surprising a lot of people. He showed off his strength. He's defended multiple of Rabadanov's takedown attempts, and he actually out wrestled Rabadanov a couple times against the ropes. So Takeda won that round, and then you go into the third round, and I mean the third round was just like the best grappling wrestling exchanges of the fight. Both guys were just going for it. Both fighters, they each had good, like they each had their time of control in this round, and we actually saw some really good sprawls by both men, especially Takeda. At the end of the round, Rabadanov hit Takeda with a big right hand that wobbled him. So overall, I mean Rabadanov got the unanimous decision win, and I agree with that. As a whole, I thought Rabadanov just won the fight. It was pretty close. Takeda did better than a lot of people thought they would. Um, Rabadanov climbs to 19-4, and Takeda falls to 15-4. So then we move on to the next fight in the main card. It was Juan Archuleta, former Bellator champion, versus Soo Chul Kim out of South Korea. In the first round, Archuleta showed that he was the obviously superior grappler. He outgrappled him multiple times, and then Kim actually ended up having Archuleta in a guillotine choke that didn't really seem like it was going to do anything, so it wasn't very threatening. Um, Kim eventually got up, and the two traded multiple times in the striking realm. And then later in the round, Archuleta actually ended up getting Takeda down again, and had some good ground and pound. So first round goes to Archuleta. In round two, Archuleta took Kim down multiple times again, and he held Kim down and landed some big ground and pound. Another round to Archuleta. Round three, actually gave round three to Soo Chul Kim. This time, Kim took Archuleta down at the beginning of the round. Didn't really do much with it though. Eventually, Archuleta got back up, and again the two exchanged some strikes in the stand up. Kim had Archuleta in a tight choke near the end of the fight, but he couldn't get it done. I scored that round for Kim as well, but Archuleta ended up winning the fight. This fight showed that Archuleta was obviously the superior grappler between the two, and that but they weren't, they were pretty equal in the striking realm. It wasn't totally a difference. So Juan Archuleta wins that fight by split decision. Actually, he climbed to 27-4, and Soo Kim fell to 18-7. In the third fight of the main card, we had Kyoji Horiguchi versus Hiromasa Ugikuba. Kyoji Horiguchi, a former competitor in the UFC, and a pretty good fighter, man. So, anyways, to start the fight, I gave all 3 rounds to Horiguchi. In the first round, most of that first round was dominated by the two grappling against the ropes. But near the end of the round, Horiguchi dropped Ugikubo with a big right hand and then proceeded to land some heavy ground and pound to end the round. So Horiguchi had hurt Ugikubo at the end of the round. To start off round 2, playing off his big momentum off that big shot at the end, Horiguchi took Ugikubo down early, and he took the back and threatened some submissions. Ugikubo eventually reversed the position and was able to get in full mount for the last 2 minutes of round 2. He landed a little ground and pound, but it wasn't enough to win in the round. In round 3, Horiguchi immediately dropped Ugikubo to start the round, immediately dropped him. He took him out, landed some decent ground and pound. There were some good wrestling scrambles, and Horiguchi landed more ground and pound. Late in that third round, Horiguchi hurt Ugikubo late with a big left hook, but couldn't quite finish him, and Horiguchi got the unanimous decision to climb to 31-5, and Ugikubo fell to 25-7.
Okay, so now we really get into the thick of it. We really get into the 2 last fights, Pitbull and Adrian McKee, their fights against these 2 Rise guys. These were the ones that everybody was looking forward to. So, in the co-main event, Patricio Pitbull fought Kleber Kloik. Everybody knows Patricio Pitbull. He's a pound-for-pound #1 Bellator fighter. The current featherweight champion and the former lightweight champion. He's been doing this for a long time. He's arguably one of the GOATs in Bellator. He probably is the GOAT in Bellator. He faced off against Kleber Kloik. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He was a great grappler. He was 31-5-1 going into this fight. He was the Rizin featherweight champion, and he actually had 27 of his 31 wins by submission. So, this guy is a total grappler, and he's fighting Pitbull. Going into round 1, in round 1, Pitbull started a little slow. He was a little reserved, but he obviously showed that, he was a better, more skilled, stronger fighter. He was controlling Kloik against the ropes, and he just showed he was a stronger fighter. There were some decent exchanges in this round, but it wasn't too eventful. I'd give round 1 10-9 to Pitbull. In round 2, Pitbull actually hurt Kloik to open the round. He cut him open. I believe it was over the left eye. Didn't really cause Kloik that much trouble, but Pitbull did cut him. So Pitbull showed in round 2 that he was just a better striker. He landed some really solid shots this round, including a big overhand right that wobbled Kloik. Koike, sorry. Going into round 3, I actually scored for Koike. Koike kept pulling guard, which is odd to me. Like you never really see that in MMA, at least in the UFC much anymore, or like you see it a little bit in Bellator, but like guys rise from pulling guard a lot, especially Koike and Souza, who we'll talk about later. In round three, Koike actually took Pitbull down. He didn't really do much with it though. He didn't really do much with the takedown. Didn't land that much damage. So overall, I definitely give the fight to Patricio Pitbull. He definitely won that. Patricio Pitbull Frere climbs to 35-5, and Koike falls to 31-6. Now we get to the main event: AJ McKee versus Roberto de Souza. Now going into this fight, I could have, I really saw a way Souza could win this. This was kind of an upset alert. Obviously, I think AJ McKee is overall the better fighter and the more skilled fighter, but De Souza is obviously like an amazing grappler. I mean, we all know his grappling credentials. He competed in many of the World IBJJF Jiu-Jitsu championships. He's won gold in like other jiu-jitsu championships. He's a very solid grappler. And he had won 5 in a row going to this AJ McKee fight. He was the Rizin lightweight champion, and he's defended it twice going into this fight. So this fight versus AJ McKee, like this could be an upset. This was the fight I was definitely most looking forward to that night. And so anyways, we go into round one, and Souza like immediately pulled guard. But McKee basically had control of him the entire round. Like the pulling guard didn't really work out. McKee just had top control the entire time, landed some ground and pound. And there was one point later in the round where Souza just launched this like crazy triangle attempt, and based off that, you could see how fast and how good of a grappler he was, how good off his back he is. Like he just launched that triangle attempt up there out of nowhere, and he did it so quick. McKee defended it, so props to McKee for defending that. I gave the first round to McKee. Now going into round two, Souza actually got McKee's back in this round, but McKee eventually reversed the position and landed some big shots while Souza was on his back. So I give that round to McKee. Going into round three, this round was also very close. AJ McKee at one point had a pretty tight Darce choke. That was at the beginning of the round. It could have been finished, but De Souza defended well, and he actually reversed it and had a nice tight guillotine at one point that McKee defended well. Later in the round, Souza actually ended up having some strong top position on AJ McKee, and then didn't really do that much with it, but eventually, like, probably the scariest point in the fight for McKee, the fight where De Souza really showed how dangerous and how good of a grappler he is, was when Souza had a backpack on AJ McKee. AJ McKee was standing up, and Souza was like a backpack on him. He was on his back and kept threatening some chokes from back there. And that was solid. McKee defended, though, so I give props to McKee. This, honestly, was probably the closest fight on the card. This is probably the closest fight on the card apart from the Juan Archuleta fight. I scored this fight for McKee, and all three of the Rizin judges also scored it for McKee. But man, Souza put up a good fight, and if you called this fight for Souza, I wouldn't call you crazy. McKee did more damage than Souza, which is why I gave him the win. But Souza had many threatening submission attempts. So anyways, AJ McKee climbs to 20-1. His only loss, obviously that controversial loss, was his Pitbull. And Robert De Souza fell to 14-2, his only second loss in MMA. Now after this fight, I'm very excited to see what AJ McKee is going to do at lightweight, because this fight was at lightweight. This is only his second fight at lightweight. And he's definitely going to be in the Bellator lightweight Grand Prix, so I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what he can do there. As for Roberto De Souza, I mean, he's one of, if not the best fighter in Rizin. I'm very excited to see what he can do. He has a Rizin lightweight championship. He's defended his last two. He's defended it twice. Out of his 14 wins, 10 of them came by submission. So I'm just excited to see what's up for both of these guys. And if you're an MMA fan, if you're an American MMA fan, or even like European, obviously you watch Bellator. Make sure to keep track of Roberto de Souza, man. He's pretty good. And for that, that's the end of the video. I want to thank everybody for watching. See you next time.